Alright, so this is just going to be me talking a little bit about the input sequence or the kind of input checking system for moves that I have currently implemented. It's not the most efficient, as you'll see in a bit, but it gets its job done, and I think I have enough memory processing bandwidth for that to happen. So we can see here that on each tick, it does several things, right? So each tick, it checks the axis. So the way the system is structured is that it captures the input chord of each frame. So what each input chord, or what I call as input frame, consists of your joystick, which is the left, right, up, down, and then also your button presses. Because button presses are linked to events rather than check each tick, I have these events here that hooks up the button press events to set the kind of current input frame, and then so that I can process them here, and then in the end I reset the input frame. So you can see here that we're setting the input frame with all the different values that we need. So here is just converting the axis values to integers, and then here I'm adding them to our input history. And if we look at check fireball, for example, or check dragon punch actually, we can see how this is actually done, or how we recognize the DP motion, which is forward, down, down, forward. So what it essentially does is that there's this, it goes backwards in the input history to check for each different inputs. So for DP, it first checks for the punch, then checks for the down forward, then checks for the down, and checks the forward. Because I don't want the inputs to be super tight, I allow for a sequence break, which means that it's the number of frames you can have between each input. So for example, if I do forward, back, down, down, forward, punch, right? The back isn't part of the sequence, but because I'm allowing some breaks in between each of these sequences, it will still come out. And then I'm doing this backward check for each individual special move or each input type I have. But because each character only has one or two, it's pretty fast, and it's only checking like 8 different frames, or it's checking at most 3 different frames for each move that I specify. So it's really not looking much, and I not looking backwards through time too much. So it's not too much input to process. And the other thing is I also only keep 60 of these input, which is the last second, 60 of these frames, so I'm not like overloading my memory usage. And after I check for special move, here's how the input priority works, is that I check for the buttons. So I check for special moves first, and then I check for all my command normals, and then now I check for all the other different moves. I have some macro set up so that I can just specify whether I want light, medium, or heavy pressed, and then check for whether you're standing or in static guard, whether you're crouching, you're jumping, or you're standing. These inputs here are actually so that if you press light and medium, right, one of them will still come out. And I think this is prioritized to be light attack coming out earlier. I might want to change that around a little bit, but just based on the way this works is that if I press light, medium, and heavy all at the same time, right, the first this will still satisfy. So yeah, and then I just have event over here that fires every time these conditions these conditions are true, and then these are all my different attacks now. So yeah.